We'd like to share a story with you of how we've learned how great the love of God is and how infinite the atonement of Jesus Christ is. I had a great childhood. I had good, loving parents, wonderful family who I knew would support me. But as I grew up and started interacting with other guys, I always felt different. And I never had any real good male friends. I think I had a lot of effeminate behavior. I didn't like sports, things like that. I also was developing attractions to other men. And being a good Mormon boy, I didn't think that that was appropriate. I didn't think I was supposed to feel that way. And so I thought that if I had just read my scriptures more, if I prayed better, if I was a better person, that God would just take it away and I wouldn't have to deal with it. It was a couple years after my mission, and I finally told my parents. At first, it was hard for them, but they always loved me, and I knew they would. And one thing that they did is they helped me get some therapy. My therapist helped me to overcome some of my self-destructive behaviors, and also to realize that I was valuable. Even though I had same-sex attraction, even though I had made mistakes in the past. And that started several years of therapy and support groups and exodus and retreats and several different programs that helped me really address my same-sex attraction. And it was these groups that helped me to really even address some of these issues for the first time, because for a long time I wouldn't even allow myself to think about it through, to even consider the possibility of me having SSA. And I also had several bishops who helped me do that too. And as I delved into the scriptures more and studied more, and I got a different view of God. You know, God's not sitting there freaking out like, oh my goodness, I have an SSA son, what's gonna happen? He knows. I came to understand that he loves all his children, which I think seems obvious, but that included me. I decided to come out to my single adult ward, which was quite an experience and very scary. It just had a very positive reaction, and even people who I thought, who had made gay jokes and sounded very homophobic, they were very supportive of me, and it helped me to change my views of how people looked at me, because I think when I was more closeted and hidden about my feelings, that I had a very negative aspect about like the whole world was out to get me and no one would like me, and I realized how wrong that was. And even people who I thought would be very unloving and unkind turned out to be one of my greatest supports. And it was shortly after that I met this young woman.
We actually met at a salsa dance in the Oakland Stake Center.
I love dancing. It's probably one of my SSA qualities that shines out the best. And it was very helpful in finding a young woman. And so I actually asked for her number at the dance. I mean, things really hit off well, which really surprised me, because normally they don't. And it was on the second date that things were feeling right, and I actually kissed her on the second date.
I had never kissed anybody on a second date before. We did kiss on that second date, and then we really didn't much at all for a lot of the subsequent dates.
I tried. I thought that I did a lot more, but apparently I didn't. So I was planning on telling her, but I did want her to get to know me first.
It was making me a little bit anxious or worried, and I was looking in the mirror when finally things clicked in my head. And I looked at myself and I said, he likes you, but he's not sexually attracted to you. And I felt, yeah, I think that's what's going on here. And I'm okay with that. And so for me, that was sort of my hurdle that I got over.
Yeah, and I'd imagined for years before I even met Alyssa about how I would ever possibly tell a girl that I have same-sex attraction. And I decided the most important thing was for her to know that I wanted to pursue the relationship. So I started off with, you know I like you, right?
And And so I kept waiting for the, so I want to break up with you statement, which just didn't come.
I never said that. Because I did want to be with her, and I did want to pursue her. And I was worried that she'd be breaking up with me. And then I told her that I liked guys, which was also the way I decided to say it, because everyone knows what that means. There's no political things about it. It's just...
So when he said I like guys, I was wondering where that left me, because the concept that someone could have SSA and really not want to act on it was something that I really had never encountered before.
I had heard lots of friends of people who had gotten married and tried to make everything work, and where it ended in ugly divorces and nothing really worked, and it was horrible, awful torture the whole time. And it frightened me. And so I made a deal with God. I didn't ask him whether I should get married or not. I asked him whether I should proceed as if I were to get married, which is different. And so he overwhelmingly responded yes. And now that I had this answer that I was supposed to proceed as if we're supposed to get married anyway, there's not that evaluation. And I think it was shortly after that the gusto really started kicking in.
Yes, we were flying back we just attended
a family reunion.
His family reunion, and I noticed for the first time that I was able to actually flirt with him and actually get a response. And it was...
She tortured me on the airplane. Because you were sitting on an airplane, It's not like we can let's make out. But she was totally teasing me. And for the first time, that was hard. That was very difficult for me.
That was the first time I'd ever actually been able to be in that situation, which it was fun. And so I did play it up a little. But it definitely marked a transition in our relationship.
And so we proceeded I then got over my fear. And we got engaged and started getting ready for marriage. And even though I knew I was supposed to get married, there was still that fear of how everything will work out. But I figured that, we could make it work, that my sex isn't the most important thing. It is important, but it's not the most important thing. And so I was willing to go forth, and I was very pleasantly surprised that it wasn't very difficult.
Marriage has just been so wonderful.
Yeah.
It hasn't been incredibly difficult, and we've been able to keep an active sex life, and that hasn't been a problem.
Yeah, the first time, it was just fun. On our honeymoon, it's important for people to know that it is possible, and I know it, and I'm not saying what happened for us will happen to everyone, and I'm not saying if you get married then everything will work out perfectly and great, but I'm sharing my story, and that's what happened for us. I was shocked. I was definitely expecting a lot more hardships, challenges, things not working out than there was. I'm actually still bitter about all the negativity that is in our culture around this issue, because I really had to overcome a lot to even consider getting married in the first place. So even though I'm in a wonderful relationship and a wonderful marriage with my wife, I still have same-sex attraction.
It was interesting to me because even though we dealt with a lot of the issues as we were dating, it seemed like getting married, we had to re-explore some of those areas again and go back and reevaluate how he was feeling, and we had to find new solutions to some of the same problems, because the dynamic does change when you get married.
I think I've used the analogy before of sometimes I feel like a refugee from a war-torn country who gets plopped into a first world country, and I have a beautiful wife and a kid and family and friends who support me, and everything's great. But at the same time, I remember what it was like to be where I was at. And so I was in a very dark place. I was in a place without the Spirit. I was thinking that it couldn't happen, and that questioning whether I could be a faithful member of the church with SSA, and the pain of hiding everything, it's still a part of who I am. It's through this experience that I've really realized how much God has been directing my life. I don't think I would have been married to Alyssa if I hadn't gone through the struggles that I've gone through. It's made me a better person.
My brother had redelivered to me a note that I wrote when I was probably 14 that outlined qualities I was looking for in my eternal companion. And even at such an early age, I was quite struck when I looked at it so many years later, almost double the age I was at when I wrote it, that Joshua was every single one of those things, and that every single one of those things was still so important to me. And just how important some of his SSA traits really played into the things that I really wanted. That it wasn't something that, was a huge sacrifice on my part. It was actually that as I worked through him, with him, alongside him, through a lot of these struggles and trials, it has been incredibly eye-opening for me as well. And I'm so much more grateful for the Savior and what he did, and how his sacrifice has made it possible for us to have this amazing relationship and to continue to strengthen it and hopefully to become better people each and every day.